A big draw of Helluva Boss is talking about its 7 princes, of which we still haven't met 3 of them, Satan, Leviathan, and Belphegor. But because we haven't met them, I actually get requested to explain as much as I can about them, more so than Asmodeus or Beelzebub or the princes we are well aware of. With that in mind, my name is ImpSona. We're going to break down everything we know about these 3 princes of hell, but if you want to see my general thoughts on the 7 princes, I made a ranking video over on our side channel, Random Universe. Link is in the pinned comment down below, go check it out. Now, so far, we are of course well aware of Lucifer, who is a primary character in Hazbin Hotel and the ruler of the Pride Ring. The other princes were largely reserved for Helluva Boss, it seems, with Asmodeus and Mammon of course becoming essentially main characters in the show. 2 powerful and important figures not just to Hell, but to the unraveling of the story of Blitz and Stolas' relationship and the people that surround them. However, recently, Vizipop said that she would be finalizing the designs for Satan and Leviathan for an upcoming episode, and with that in mind, I imagine Belphegor, who was mentioned by Beelzebub in her debut episode, is probably somewhere on the horizon as well. So let's break them all down, from what we know in the show to what we know about them in real life. Satan is interesting because unlike the other princes of hell, he has a lot more reason to be attached to Lucifer as a whole. Lucifer in Hazbin Hotel is the king of hell, with Satan serving as the prince of the Wrath Ring, but in the Zoophobia comic that came before Hazbin Hotel or Helluva Boss, the devil figure went by both Satan and Lucifer, making them one character. This is because in Christianity, Satan and Lucifer are often seen as the same figure, while other facets of Christianity do depict them as entirely different characters though. And despite the fact that I explained both sides of this just now, there's still going to be people in the comments saying, actually, Satan and Lucifer aren't the same entity in Christianity, and act like I'm really ignorant. It happens literally every time I explain this, no matter how I explain this, so just leave a comment down below telling me how wrong I am anyways. Satan was the name of the devil as he appeared in the New Testament, as an evil entity that tries to tempt Jesus, and who is cast down to earth with the other angels in the book of Revelations. This was derived from the Ha-Satan of the book of Job, where Ha translates as the, and Satan as adversary or accuser. This name would be transliterated into Greek, giving us Satan, but the New Testament would also call this figure Diabolos, or devil, itself meaning accuser or slanderer. Now, originally, Ha-Satan was described in the book of Job as being one of the sons of God, a council of angels that surrounded God and do his bidding in heaven and on earth. In the book of Job, Ha-Satan is presented more so as a naive entity than as an evil devil figure, thinking that Job is only praising God because of the blessings he has in life. God allows Ha-Satan to test Job by taking away his blessings, which is considered a learning lesson not just for Job, but for Ha-Satan, who ultimately learns why the best of humans are better than the angels. The reason Satan was conflated with Lucifer early on is because they seem to just be different names connecting to the same few stories of a fallen figure in Jewish and Christian mythology. In the early days of translating the Bible from Hebrew to Greek, the Greek scholars became particularly interested in Isaiah 14, which described a Babylonian king and his fall from grace. The metaphor used in the passage involves comparing him to Hillel ben Shahar, which translates as dawn, son of morning. This is an obvious reference to the planet Venus, which was known throughout the ancient world as the morning star because Venus would rise before the sun does, becoming the brightest light in the sky until the sun itself rises over the horizon and blocks it out. In Isaiah 14, this Hillel ben Shahar is described as having fallen from heaven, painting Venus as a figure that tried to outshine the sun before ultimately being bested by it. Before the New Testament would be written, this story of Venus would become associated with the fall of the angels in the book of Enoch, who, like Ha-Satan, were referred to as the sons of God. Like Satan and his fallen stars in the book of Revelations, the sons of God in the book of Enoch are described as rebelling against God and being cast into the earth, only to come out again at the end of days. Thus, Satan was the key name for the devil figure until the 4th century AD, at which point the Bible would be translated into Latin, and Hillel ben Shahar would be translated as Lucifer. Lucifer was one of the Roman names for Venus, Venus itself being the other name. When using the term Venus, the Romans were referring to Venus as the evening star, which was often one of the brightest stars in the night sky before following the sun as it goes below the horizon. Lucifer, meaning light bringer, was the name for the morning star because Venus was seen as pulling the sun up behind it, though unlike Venus, Lucifer was not a proper part of the Roman pantheon. The use of Lucifer as the name of the devil figure would become more popular over time, with Lucifer being considered the name of Satan before he had that title taken away for his rebellion. By the medieval period, some ideas would have spread that Lucifer and Satan were separate entities entirely, with the Lantern of Light showing them each as a ruler of a different sin in hell, which would inspire the Peter Binsfield classification that the show uses to depict Lucifer as the king of pride and Satan as the king of wrath. Satan as a whole was a very negative character in Christian theology, portrayed as the king of evil. But with the name Lucifer, people took a more sympathetic approach to the devil, likely due to easier syncretization with figures of enlightenment from other mythology. Satan was portrayed as the leader of the fallen angels who ruined God's plans for humanity, but they did so by giving humans forbidden knowledge. This was an obvious parallel to the Greek Prometheus, who was known for helping the humans by giving them fire, such as you might imagine Lucifer doing as a light bringer. Sometimes Lucifer would be portrayed still as an ultimate evil, one who tricks humans with knowledge they think they want, but that ultimately ruins them. But like Prometheus, Lucifer can also be depicted as someone more well-meaning who wanted to try and help humans, but ended up being punished for it, not just by God, but more so by the consequences of his actions and having to watch the horrors that the humans would make with their forbidden knowledge. Thus, Lucifer would begin to take on more positive aspects of the Lightbringer found in other cultures, while Satan would retain more of the stigma that the devil elsewise had. In some cases, Lucifer would be seen as the leader of hell because of his association with pride as a sin, priding himself as above all of the others, and Satan would be increasingly seen as a second in command in these traditions, sometimes seen as Lucifer's agent up on Earth or as the leader of hell's army. In the show, Satan is hinted at looking a bit like an imp from his workout app we can see on Blitz's phone, where we see a minimalistic logo that alludes to Satan's design. Like an imp, he has big horns with black and white stripes, and based on this being a workout app and Beelzebub talking about how good he looks without a shirt on, Satan probably is super jacked. Like so jacked, he's going to be putting shirtless Asmodeus to shame. As the ruler of wrath, he appears to be in charge of the imps who are the army of hell and talk very fondly of war and their war missions. Next up is Leviathan, who is probably the fan favorite in terms of princes not appearing on screen because of just how much potential this character has to open the doors to other lore. The Helluverse feels very Judeo-Christian, but it's planted the seeds of comparative mythology to show how many figures across the world's cultures may in fact be the same, and Leviathan has the opportunity to connect some very new ideas with some very ancient ones. Leviathan is a biblical sea monster often associated with the gods of watery chaos in other mythologies. These deities are often slain by the proper gods, representing the end of chaos and the rule of monsters, and the beginning of peace and unity and human culture. The ancient gods are well understood to be representations of tribes of people, with each nation having its chief god that represents them all, and smaller gods in larger pantheons that represent smaller tribes of people within them. The stories of monstrous saltwater gods like Leviathan generally represent a powerful but ruthless tribe deep in humanity's past who would have oppressed the local culture before they eventually rose up and fought back, leading to stories of their gods establishing order in the universe by defeating the monsters of watery chaos that existed before them. The mythology that built up around these entities in later times was that they were the beings of chaos that existed before existence itself, monsters of randomness born out of random possibility as opposed to the divine will of a god creating an orderly existence. This would inspire a lot of later writers, most notably H.P. Lovecraft, who was essentially rebranding this aspect of esoteric mythology into his own category that we today refer to as Lovecraftian. His stories often involve the return of these ancient and older chaos deities, these giant monsters with endless tentacles and eyes, who were so large that humans were of no consequence to them. These eldritch gods were described as simply being asleep for long enough for these smaller and less important humans to grow and develop, and once they wake up and return, humans would be doomed to die and suffer as mere ants in the lives of these gods, with merely trying to understand the gods and their significance driving men insane. In Has-Been Hotel, this is portrayed through the Von Eldridge family, a family of natural-born demons who rose to power in hell and were described by Vivziepop as being new money, despite also having these seemingly more ancient eldritch origins. Leviathan is generally believed to be connected to the Lovecraftian lore that Vivziepop wants to explore, if for no reason other than one of the children in this Von Eldridge family being named Sephiathan, similar to Leviathan. Now, Leviathan, I believe, was designed long before these 7 rings of hell were planned in the way that we have them in the show today. So the Von Eldridge family may have no relation to Leviathan as it plays out in the Helluverse, but as natural-born entities of hell, my theory is that they are part of a sort of primordial chaos, perhaps, found at the bottom of the Envy Ring, which appears to be the darkest of the rings with its purple sky, despite the Sloth Ring being another step below that. I would like to imagine that Lovecraftian entities are sort of the primordial ooze of hell, with all life in hell perhaps starting from the oceans of envy, just as it's said to start in our oceans here on Earth, before eventually crawling out of the water and into the other rings. I like to think that Leviathan and other Lovecraftian entities are not as powerful as the figures that developed in heaven and hell after them, but more ancient, and perhaps having an understanding of the universe that they seemingly existed in before and could continue to exist in after, knowing they just have to play their part in whatever hierarchy that may pop up, and that they could outlast even the angels like Lucifer in the end. Belphegor is the ruler of the Sloth Ring in the Helluverse, and is referred to as a woman by Beelzebub. Sloth is known for its medical industry, which seems largely supported not by real medical care, which it does its best to make difficult for people to get, but by the extremely addictive pharmaceutical pills that they give prescriptions for. Despite how easy it is to get these medications, Beelzebub complains that Belphegor doesn't give her access to the good stuff for her parties, indicating that Belphegor has an interesting control complex with how these are used. Beelzebub loves the indulgence of drugs as the ruler of gluttony, but as the ruler of sloth, Belphegor has different goals with how the public uses their pills. Belphegor's interest seems more so in keeping the people docile, using pills to keep them happy, such as we see Stolas doing in Season 2, Episode 1, but not so that they can party and have a wild time like Beelzebub likes to. Belphegor maintains control of people by creating very streamlined systems where people do as little as possible, as spaced out as possible, with as many pills as possible in between to make sure people are kept on time with their daily cyclical cycle. Originally, Belphegor is described as having rebelled against heaven simply because they did not want to work, and thus could be lazy in hell, with the medical aspect just being a clever modern way to tie in that sin to what people all over the world are experiencing through prescription pills today. These are the 3 princes that we have not seen in Helluva Boss, but if you want to hear my thoughts on the others, go check out my video ranking these 7 princes over on Random Universe. See you guys there.